Hey everybody, my name is Dory, and when I saw Christine McPeak's question yesterday, I was like, okay, Unique McPeak, I see you. That is a really good question, and I have been a bookworm literally this entire lifetime, and I'm sure all of my lifetimes. My mom said that when I was a baby, I insisted on being put to bed with a stack of books. And at like 9, 10 months old, I would literally just sit and page through books and entertain myself for hours. Didn't tear the books. I was very careful with them. I accidentally tore a page once, and mom had a talk with me at 10 months old about how, we have to take care of our books, and, we shouldn't tear your books and things like that. We have to be careful with them, and if you tear your books, I'm going to take them away from you, and you're only going to get the cardboard books, which of course was not acceptable. Anyway, and then my mom taught me, like, we used to go to the public library, was always the big thing, and check out tons of books. And my mom told my dad was into playing arcade games when I was a baby, and she goes, every quarter you put in an arcade game, I'm buying Dory a book. Well, that cured him of his arcade game habit, but she didn't stop buying me books. So, and she actually taught me to read when I was 4. She had her degree in elementary education, and with an emphasis on early reading. So I was reading, like full out reading at 4, and tested to skip kindergarten. But mom was like, no, we're not going to do that. I'm not ready for her to be gone all day. But anyway, so when she asked that, I was like, oh my gosh, of the millions of books that I have read or want to read, one book, seriously? And the first book that came to mind was The Sophia Code by Kaya Ra. I was like, that would be a good one. But even better would be The Book of Secret Wisdom, The Prophetic Record of Human Destiny and Evolution. So this book, so it's the world's most ancient sacred text, and it reveals the past, present, and future of humanity. And so I'm just going to read the back, and then I'll read a little bit of the book, and then I have a reflection that I wrote on February 2nd of 2022 at 2:30 a.m. that I'm going to share with you as well. So, 1,000,000 years ago, the great masters of wisdom recorded a mysterious manuscript widely known as the Book of Dizan, a Tibetan name meaning the Book of Secret Wisdom. Written in a language unfamiliar to modern philology, called Stanzas, this oldest book in the world has served as the source of every ancient religion, philosophy, and science. The masters stored it in the legendary realm of Shambhala, each century admitting only a few chosen ones to read some of its pages. Thus, in the 19th century, Madame Blavatsky was permitted to translate and publish 19 stanzas from the Book of Dizan in her highly influential masterwork, The Secret Doctrine. Now, a new excerpt consisting of 12 stanzas and supplemented with exclusive material is published in English for the first time. Reading through the pages of this work, you will be able to trace the whole course of the spiritual evolution of humanity and our Earth beyond time and space. Understand the processes currently affecting our planet, which manifests daily in anomalous weather, global warming, and natural disasters around the world. Discover what was behind the famous prophecies of 1999 and 2012, as well as learn about the great significance of 2017 in the history of modern humanity. Peer into the near future that awaits us all within the next few decades and explore the magnificent distant times of divine humanity. With every new reading, more and more secrets will be revealed. So this is written, the little blurb about the author. Zenovia Dushkova, PhD, is an award-winning author, poet, philosopher, historian, and traveler who has devoted more than 30 years to the acquisition of the secret wisdom underlying all new religions and philosophies. Her research has taken her to remote Buddhist monasteries and sacred abodes hidden within mountains and deserts in Tibet, Nepal, Mongolia, and India, where she has studied ancient manuscripts inaccessible to Western researchers. So she is Russian, and she translated it from Censar to English. So, first time in English. It says, this work is dedicated to all truth-seeking hearts of all countries and of all races, for they are graced with the cosmic right to know the truth of the world's creation by the law of divine love. So, the oldest book in the world and its sacred language. The oldest book in the world and its sacred language. The one source of truth nourishes the tree of knowledge, stretching its roots into infinite eternity. In each cycle of human evolution, it bears good fruit in the form of a great book, which serves as the source of all knowledge and wisdom for humanity for a specific period. And every book of this kind, like a tree, grows and yields its own fruit for the good of the whole world. At the dawn of the conscious evolution of humanity, approximately 18 million years ago, the Sons of Light brought the fiery teaching of Kala Chakra from the distant worlds as a gift for the people of Lemuria, sowing the first seeds of all the existing religions of the earth. The new pages of knowledge opened in the one universal language of the sun, Censar, inviting them to further delve into the books of enlightened knowledge. And thus, ever after, each epoch aimed to reveal the secret pages of universal knowledge, thereby facilitating the progress of human consciousness round by round. Many of the innermost pages of the great book were revealed to the human population of Atlantis. They knew more than anyone else, for many secrets of surrounding nature were confided to them, and their best representatives had gained the right to look beyond the field of vision, unveiling the invisible life. But the Atlanteans had not accepted the heart as the organ to which one should subordinate the intellect. They honored the mind above all, and they disappeared from the stage of life without learning this simple truth. Knowledge without love is dead. Thus, because of their pride, people deprived themselves of the secret wisdom, gradually forgetting their pristine universal language. Nevertheless, the great initiates remained in every land and nation, guarding the ancient wisdom as a sacred trust. About 1 million years ago, at the beginning of the evolution of our present humanity, the Sons of Light recorded in the language of Censar the most ancient book of our time, known as the Book of Dizan, a Tibetan name meaning the Book of Secret Wisdom. This archaic manuscript, in its turn, has yielded a multitude of its own fruits for the development of humanity. But as soon as humanity received the highest knowledge, it immediately began to throw these books into fires and subject to severe condemnation those who had presented them with the priceless gifts. Humanity was ready to turn any messenger of the kingdom of heaven into an outcast. And yet hundreds of thousands of the Sons of Light have walked upon the earth, leaving profound traces in the history of human development. Despite the destruction of numerous libraries full of magnificent scrolls of inexhaustible knowledge from time immemorial to present day, there exist secret treasuries of sacred books written by the messengers of light and presented as a gift to humanity. Every line has been crystallized by the heartfelt fires of the souls who were magnanimous in their giving. Yes, some were burnt at the stake together with their gifts. Others were mutilated by cruelest torture. But still there were those who managed to save the sacred manuscripts and, risking their lives, placed one priceless gift after another in secret repositories. And all these unusual libraries, located in the mountains of Tibet, the Himalayas, the Karakoram, the Pyrenees, and other mountainous areas, as well as hidden under the sands of the Gobi Desert, parts of the Sahara, in the sands of Nubia and other lands, can be revealed to the world only when people are able to discern white from black and distribute the priceless gifts solely for the good of their neighbors. These are the abodes of the brotherhood, members of which came from the distant world, being concealed as impenetrable mountains and deserts. They are guarded by mysterious powers. Physical flesh is not able to endure the force of the currents that rise like a wall when they are approached. And in order to gain access to them, one needs to pass through many lives with a loving heart and pure soul. When the time comes, worthy candidates for discipleship must be summoned into one of the ashrams, where they would be entitled to come into contact with the highest knowledge and wisdom. The chief of these is the legendary realm of Shambhala, the resplendent, the abode of the great white brotherhood of teachers. The approaches to this stronghold of light are vigilantly protected. For mere curiosity seekers, there is no access beyond the permitted boundaries. An unbidden guest will never reach and will inevitably fail to find the way to it. However, one who responds to the call of the great Lord of Shambhala discovers one's path thanks to invisible signs. Only a pure consciousness is able to correctly discern the symbols which appear to one's gaze. The wise heart alone is able to understand the secret signs that lead the pilgrim to the white ashram, situated on the white island. Mysterious white waters wash its banks, but the only one who is summoned by the Lord passes through these waters as easily as on dry land. In Shambhala, indeed, not people but gods abide. The greatest teachers, the leaders of humanity, the discoverers of the distant worlds, the messengers of the faraway stars, in shining bodies of divine purity, glide about like angels doing their work every moment. Ceaselessly they watch over the world, protecting it from a disastrous fate. A seal of smiles illumines their sunny faces, enchanting the gaze of the pilgrim who is encountering for the first time in their life the miracle of miracles which actually exists on the earth. Here reigns the sacred language of Stanzas, from which have originated the tongues of all people through the ages. Thus the roots of many current Eastern languages come from Sanskrit, which is based on Stanzas. Many words of this most ancient language underlie not only Sanskrit, but also Egyptian, Hebrew, Latin, and other languages of various known and yet to be discovered sacred texts. The language of Stanzas is distinct from others in that, because of its flexible nature, it has no dead or long entrenched forms of expression. Just like any other language, Stanzas has both spoken and written forms of speech, which are substantially different from our traditional understanding. I don't know how to do that. Okay, so I'm worried my video is going to be too long. So instead of continuing to read the introduction, I'm going to skip that and I'm going to start reading the first stanza, which is called, actually, you know what? I'll finish the introduction. I'll come back and read the first stanza either later today or tomorrow. So we'll do it in multiple parts because I think there's a lot of good information in the introduction. So, all right. Conversation among initiated adepts, for the most part, takes place on the subconscious level using thought forms. And here, by means of 2 or 3 phrases, one can express that which even several volumes of text cannot. For human words, so often comprising many contradictory shades and nuances, have only limited capabilities of meaning. The concision of the Stanzas language enables it to express most completely and compactly any thought, including infinitely extensive phenomena. Symbolism underlies speech, hence one small symbol sent in the form of a particular vibration to a companion unfolds a whole network of images and fiery signs through the living breath and geometric expressions of a combination of rays, bringing out a whole range of light in sequence where a particular color dominates as though emphasizing the key tone of the message. In this way, thanks, Jessica. Let's see, I just lost my place because I saw your comment. In this way, we note the presence of light, color, and sound contained in a thought form, thereby completely excluding the necessity of direct verbal contact. The voice of the great silent is heard everywhere in Shambhala, but its sounds are always arranged at the in the diapason of high frequency energy vibrations, and they, refracted through a sensitive heart, develop into a specific word. Uh-oh. So I hope I'm live. It says that I'm live, but I also have a thing saying that the current frame rate is too low, so they may experience a lower quality stream. Let's see if I can figure out. No idea. This looks like Greek to me. Saying that. Huh. I don't know. Hopefully I'm still alive. Sorry for the interruption, guys. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and keep reading, and hopefully that you guys get to see it. Though now I've lost my video. It's gone into a small tab, and I want it big. I want to see the whole thing where I can see your comments. Let's see. Huh. Okay, there we go. All right, I can see your comments again now, so we are good. All right. Where was I? The writing system of Stanzas is even more complicated, combining in itself seemingly incompatible elements. These include signs, syllables, and letters based on symbolism. A single symbol is capable of developing into an entire treatise, being easily understandable by an initiated disciple of any ethnic background. Of course, the reader's level of consciousness is also important. Color, light, number, and sound play a significant role in a secret alphabet from which words and sentences are composed. Each letter possessing its own specific color of the rainbow, shade of light, number, and mystic sound syllable has its equivalent in the language of all people of the world and may be reproduced using different cryptographic methods with the aid of specialized calculation tables. Thus, a new cryptographic alphabet is created in a given tongue, while numerological, geometrical, and astrological keys help the reader precisely determine the way to decode this secret writing. Consequently, this language of signs and symbols facilitates the comprehension of a text written in any tongue. Herein lies the value of such scriptures, for their language is unique, affording the opportunity to preserve itself without the imposed changes that inevitably take place in a language we are familiar with. But special knowledge is needed in order to learn this language of original cryptography, though the acquisition of it is not as complicated as it might seem at first. Above the sacred island rises a multi-story tower called Chung, and here on one of the floors is stored the only original copy of the Book of Dizan. Among other archaic manuscripts, such as the Book of the Golden Precepts and the Book of Maitreya Buddha. In fact, the Tower of Chung, going deep into the rock and high above the clouds, keeps a number of mysteries, which were inscribed into the pages of extremely voluminous books. The gates of the depositories open wide like a book, ready to endow waiting hearts with secret knowledge. How many unexplored folios one can behold within the stronghold of light? Only the great Lord knows. From the earth to heaven, the rows of books are lined up in an orderly manner in the order of the hierarchical ladder, the highest steps of which are occupied by the worthiest of the worthy. Here one can see the very earliest manuscripts recorded on tablets of every kind, and one may discover further blessed signs of engraved human thought by transferring one's reading from stone to invisible books inaccessible to earthly eyes. Thus, one may find here records of the development of the entire universe, folios devoted to the study of the physical spheres of the earth and the history of all the kingdoms of nature and space. However, not only these records are stored here, but also that of the history of any specific individual, beginning from the moment of their spirit's origin to their descent into dense matter. The books of human destinies are kept in special repositories, and they are similar to the scrolls of Akasha, through whose unfoldment one can watch the unfoldment of one's own life in any period of incarnation, just like a film. These books are crystallized by a special kind of fire, and when opening them, one may enter any space-time dimension and witness hitherto unseen episodes of one's life. Many advanced souls will succeed in perceiving their future as well on the pages of these books. The volumes of the subtle future, as well as the pages of these books, the volumes of the subtle plane contain the names of those who have advanced farther than others on the path of light. Their names are expressed in the form of certain signs, for a soul may have thousands of names, and this sign confers the right to open the needed page where a text starts to appear, allowing one to read about the deeds done in the name of light. Here one can find the answer to any question. 7 books successively reveal the history of spirit's movement through the earthly and ethereal worlds. There is one special book where not many souls are inscribed, the Book of Fiery Destinies. It registers only those who have trod the heroic path and with their self-sacrificing labor have brought the light of the imperial spheres to the earth. This book records fiery deeds, and it is entirely woven from the highest substance of fire. Only those who are inscribed in the book are able to read it, for one needs special knowledge in order to understand the fiery signs. While in the former volumes one may find deeds of the flesh and soul, this one reflects only the fiery path of the divine spirit, and it is possible to read one's destiny for many thousands of years ahead. The best deeds on the level of countries, people, and leaders have been gathered into the depository of experience, finding their place on the pages of numerous books. They are arranged according to the degree of chiaroscuro, as mentioned before, set forth pyramidally by hierarchical principle, at the foundation of which are those folios which are the closest to earthly spheres. Closer to the top are the tablets of the subtle plane, crowned by the volumes of fiery destinies. In addition, the mysterious tower houses the records of all neglected opportunities given to the human race since its creation. Books burnt in fires containing the knowledge covering all spheres of life, the most progressive ideas, scientific discoveries, and many, many other things which today could have helped humanity to ascend to the step of divine humanity, if only people had accepted all this with their minds. The entire human life would not be sufficient to copy on paper the contents of even a single folio. But even the most comprehensive volume seems to be amazingly light, since its pages are made from a special composition of matter. Neither fire nor water can affect the compactly written lines which have been crystallized forever. Even though it represents a special historical era, this is a living word, affirmed beyond time and space. Light revives before one's eyes, and a statistically affirmed word takes on a definite hue of manifested energy, resulting in pictures visible to the human eye. However, it is impossible to describe in human words such concepts as color, light, and sound that figure on the imperial tablets written in the sacred Stanzas. For each of the priceless artifacts, a special niche was created, which was imbued with the currents of those times when an individual manuscript came to light. Further, the energy constant of the currents is preserved thanks to a specially constructed covering, a vitreous substance which has a clearly defined geometrical shape. Thus, the manuscripts bear within themselves an extremely powerful energy potential for many millennia to come. The Book of Dizan is preserved in a similar manner. The lines of the Book of Dizan bear secret signs that unfold the entire history of world development from inception until the very last moment. Its pages may be disclosed before the eyes of pilgrims only by the great Lord of Shambhala, who has summoned them with a specific aim to share with humanity the ancient wisdom that has been concealed within unknown caves and mysterious multi-story towers rooted deep in the earth. And while they who gain access to the great book are able to behold it with their own eyes, nevertheless, the manuscript itself must remain in its energy niche and should not be touched by human hands. The needed pages will open all by themselves simply from touches on the subtle plane by the instructor of the human race. Nowadays, many volumes of exoteric and esoteric commentaries on the Book of Dizan, representing all of the innermost sciences, are kept hidden in the secret lamissaries of the East. Each of the ancient sciences, religions, and philosophies of the present stage of human evolution is derived from this great book. And that is why all sacred texts and all the works of initiated philosophers and alchemists have the same ideas in common, being only popular interpretations of certain parts of the secret manuscript presented in a different light. In the meantime, the true meaning was veiled by the messengers of light behind symbols, myths, and legends, deliberate vagueness and unfamiliar terms, extremely abstruse mathematical calculations, and a secret code of certain words and expressions, plus many other forms of camouflage, the 7 keys to which are in the hands of the Mahatmas alone, and each of the 7 keys must be turned 7 times before the entire meaning is revealed. The Book of Dizan consists of stanzas, the total number of which is known only to the initiates. During certain periods of time, fragments of this sacred manuscript are divulged by the great masters of wisdom through their messengers in a certain ray, since different epochs demand expressions of different energies imbuing knowledge with the specific energy coloring which is needed for the enrichment of the world in a particular century. Thus, in 1888, for the first time in the history of modern humanity, 19 stanzas from the Book of Dizan were revealed by Helena Petrovna Blavatsky in her landmark masterwork, The Secret Doctrine, comprising 2 volumes on the creation of the universe and the origin of humanity, known as Cosmogenesis and Anthropogenesis. A 3rd volume, Theogenesis, which includes 9 stanzas of Dizan on the inherent divinity of humanity, was received by Francia Ledoux between 1906 and 1918. The present volume is a new excerpt from the Book of Dizan, or the Book of Secret Wisdom, entitled Apogenesis. It comprises, Agapogenesis. Agapogenesis. It comprises 12 stanzas which were originally translated from Censar into Russian by Zinovia Vasilyevna Dushkova in 1995, expounding the symbolism of the mysterious language in the ray of love wisdom. The translation from the language of Censar is complicated by the fact that it is not always possible to find equivalents in other languages for words conveying a complex idea or action. For example, in the matter of finding a human term for the divine infinite principle or the inconceivable cause of all existence, there are very few words that are able to clearly express the main idea to the majority of people living in the Christian countries. 2 of these would be God and the Creator, but the Christian understanding of these words does not quite correspond to truth. At the same time, it is better not to use terms such as Ein Sof, Brahman, or Adi Buddhi, which might only confuse readers who have been brought up in the Christian tradition. Therefore, in order not to be misunderstood and avoid so many complicated terms, the translator, as a rule, uses those words and expressions that are the most acceptable and accessible in the society she lives in. Unlike the previous parts of the Book of Dizan, the stanzas of Agapogenesis were given without the commentaries of the great teachers. This is because they were translated through the ray of love wisdom with its particular focus on the heart. A whole volume of commentary could be devoted to each of the 12 stanzas, but the heart, possessing an all-seeing eye, allows one to grasp the whole truth contained in them. Like all esoteric texts, Genesis comprises 7 levels of understanding, and therefore, with every new reading, more and more secrets will be revealed to the eyes of one's heart. This, in turn, will proclaim the assimilated truth through the voice of intuition. However, to aid those who are taking their first steps towards studying such books, the glossary of words and phrases was compiled. Using the knowledge given by the masters of the ancient wisdom over the last centuries, it is designed to serve as a basis for understanding this work. And so, beyond time and space, the 12 mysterious stanzas of love will open before your eyes not only the past, but also the present and future of humanity and the earth, thus bearing in mind the universal law of correspondences. As below, so above. It is possible... Yes, Jessica, there is a synchronicity. Just wait until I start reading the actual stanza, because it's totally... The first book one of the Bible, Genesis, is totally based on Agape Genesis, and it is like you can literally see how this is like the actual God level version, whereas the Bible is like the dumbed down, muddied up version made comprehensible on the level of where humans were at that time in history. So that's, yeah. that's where it comes from. Okay, so where was I? Let's see. And so, but beyond time and space, the 12 mysterious stanzas of love will open before your eyes not only the past, but also the present and future of humanity and the earth, thus bearing in mind the universal law of correspondences, as below, so above. It is possible to understand, by analogy, the development of all races of humanity in all their rounds of evolution, as well as comprehend the path of evolution of our planet, the solar system, and the whole universe according to the law of divine love. So, Agape Genesis, 12 stanzas from the book of Dizan. And I just want to show you because I remember this just kind of blowing my mind. Okay, so these are the 12 stanzas. This section of the book right here this is the 12 stanzas. Then we have the epilogue. Here, let me mark that page. Because I'm going to go ahead and keep reading. I know, doesn't it blow your mind? Totally. And then we have the epilogue that's written by Zinovia Dishkova, the woman who translated this. And then this is the glossary. So there's like so much information added here to help comprehend literally like what? Let me see. Pages 3 through 56. So 53 pages. The stanzas take up 53 pages, and then we've got another, what, like 200 pages of explanation of all the stuff that you read in the 12 stanzas. So, and I'm pretty sure there are more books. Like, I know she's written more books, and I think there are more excerpts from this. I haven't gotten into those. I haven't even read this whole thing yet. Like, I haven't even read the whole 12 stanzas yet. But, so I'm going to go ahead and read stanza 1. Jessica said I can go live for 3 hours if I want. I'm not going to go live for 3 hours. But I am going to read stanza 1, which is... I guess stanza 1's not as long as I thought it was. Well, I'm going to start reading it, and then I'm going to get to the point where I'm going to read my reflection that I wrote. I read part of this to a friend. This was a couple years ago when I first started reading the book. And then I got distracted by other things and then didn't get back to finishing it yet. But now it's time, I guess, to get back to it. And so I read her some of the book, and then I read her my reflection. She's like, oh my gosh, I like what you read more, so much better than I like this. And I think it was because, like, this is at a different level. And so what I wrote kind of, like, translated and explained. So anyway, that's just my perspective. So, and I've been meaning to go back to this and, like, continue reading and then writing about it. because it is so mind-blowing and incredible. And I mean, I got so much out of just the tiny fraction of it that I've read. But I think this was, anyway. Okay, so stanza 1, the genesis of divine love. So here is where Genesis, that's where it comes in. Okay. 1. The gods were at work rotating the stellar wheel. They were winding up the hidden mainspring, which then would unfold, manifesting itself in the concept of time. The earth was waiting for it, for the spot bearing that name was already aware of its mission. A small, barely visible drop of matter was swirling around in eternity, and for it the lords of destiny had foreordained love. It was their loving intention to see that love would fill that little drop, and after condensing it, carry it to its divine ultimate boundaries. 2. The sun was beginning his round. He had a defined role, the bearer of love. It was his job to imbue that small cluster with the warmth of the fiery heart, which finally started to take on a definite appearance. The newly attenuated state of matter enabled the sun to carry out the excellent work of filling it with his currents of abundant love. 3. The gods knew their task and set a new pace for their wheel, which was now vibrating faster than ever. The density of matter was coupled with firmness and elasticity. The currents of love had to struggle in order to successfully pierce the stone with their fire. I'm going to stop reading the numbers because I think it kind of interrupts it. The new kingdom of stones was populating the earth, endowing her with power over their motionless bodies. The planet, raised by the currents of love, knew only one way she herself could bring forth life, and that was love. Love. Here she was a rule, a law, a form of life. Only one thing was required of the earth, to love. And the lords of destiny kept strict watch over the fulfilling of karma. The planet was doing her utmost. She knew how to love and what it was to be loved. With all the zeal and fervor of her loving soul, she warmed the motionless stones, breaking through their hardness and elasticity. They revived, drinking in the generous currents of love. Stones were resurrected. They began to blossom like petals of divine flowers and took their place in turn. The planet was beautified by a profusion of flowers. The warmth of the sun became stronger, for he was clearly experiencing the magical power of the influence of love, and the flowers loved both their father sun and their mother earth. They were their children, born in common. The parents carefully looked after their flowers' luxuriant heads of many colors, open wide towards them. The universe beheld the work of the lords and was pleased with the flowers' first successful appearance. Ceaselessly, they worked, imbuing the world with a fragrant aroma. Attracted by the flowers' power of love, constellations generously imparted their own. The lords of destiny were content. All was proceeding according to their predestined plan. Love reigned supreme all over the world. She was calm and content in her earthly domains. All the celestial bodies supported her in that divine work. Only the sun sometimes peered anxiously into the bowels of earth during the times when she hid her sides from him as she rotated. Because of the density of matter, the sun was not able to glimpse what was happening on the other side of the planet. Eventually, robust vegetation girdled the world, hiding the gentle flowers in its shadow and choking their tiny stems with its mighty roots. These giants seized power and began to swallow light greedily, cutting off the warm solar rays from those who were shorter and much weaker than they. Without the caressing warmth of the all-loving sun, lesser creatures withered and perished. Evil had appeared in the world for the first time. The sun was unable to discern what was going on beneath the thick crowns of giant trees. These effectively concealed evil, which had managed to steal in surreptitiously. The all-seeing eye of the sun partially lost its power, for he could not illuminate the hidden backside of the earth. The condensation of matter came to the end of its tether. Billions of years had passed, and human souls were still similar to stones. How could they have become so callous and impenetrable? It was a difficult question to answer. They had become acquainted with evil, who was already rotating this black wheel of time in full swing, standing just beyond the border of the light. While on the reverse side, the darkness was trying to obscure the whole of the light so as to transform him into gloom. But for that, she needed some assistance from earthlings. The light was fighting bravely, armed with the one power of love, but because he was always ablaze with pure divine love, he felt no hatred toward the darkness, nor did he know jealousy. Love was the most powerful weapon, and the darkness was helpless against her. It was necessary to wield that weapon to be omnipotent, but the darkness could not approach the light openly, for she would immediately burn down, engulfed in the flame of love. But by and by she found a way around. She would enter human hearts, which were alone capable of holding the sacred divine gift. The human heart started to glow like the celestial star itself, and that tiny sun in a human breast was full of the bright and brimming over currents of love. Nevertheless, the heart, parched with an endless thirst, went on constantly searching only for love, only for that divine impulse could be quenched by love, or for that divine impulse could be quenched by love alone. Apparently, the love of the earthly hearts did not know satisfaction, for she still had not yet fully experienced the power of the sacred, divinely supreme love. An enormous task of recognition lay ahead. And so, to fulfill that task of pure heavenly labor, the Lords of Destiny asked the gods to launch the supreme mechanism which would turn another wheel, one that would go beyond the bounds of time, leading human hearts along heavenly pathways to the recognition of true love. Stanza 2, the knowledge of the heart. The day arrived. The wheel gradually gained momentum and led human hearts towards knowledge, something the hearts had known for a long time. But man was not yet able to comprehend the wisdom of his own heart. He had not actually guessed that the heart was capable of knowing. And all the while, the still small voice which imparted the wise counsel of life was practically inaudible to the insensitive human ear. And even when that voice rang out with unmistakable clarity like an alarm bell, calling its hearers to arm themselves with the power of love on the eve of death, man attempted to muffle it, preferring to take a roundabout route through the labyrinths and machinations of the mind. But the intellect was not able to perceive what the heart knew, for it was subject to decay. Evil could easily penetrate thereinto, not fearing any encounter with the bright, dazzling light of fiery thought. Man could think only on the lowest levels, and so the wheel began a new round. People gradually began to pay attention to the leadings of their own heart, becoming convinced that the mind's contemplations, more often than not, led them to the wrong conclusions. And the barely perceptible voice of the heart, it appeared, had presaged the truth, and so there was a pressing need to hearken to that which possessed the wisdom of insight. But how to do this? How is it possible to avoid mistaking the voice of the mind for the inaudible tremors of the currents of the heart? People became thoughtful once again, and the heart, meanwhile, was still waiting for the time when it would be accepted as the best and most faithful friend. The sun was shining, keeping a close watch on human hearts. He tried to nourish them with fires in a bid to reinforce the power of life. Life herself was the gift of the light, for without him she could not be conceived. Would this world even exist if there were no sun? He gave the light, and it was the rays of light that life had spread her immortal wings. Yes, life was immortal, for she was the forever companion of the light who did not know death. Life and the light were one. The heart, woven out of light, belonged to life. The most delicate particles of condensed matter were used in its formation. The heart's secret was that it could not live without love. Only love's energizing currents could wind the hidden mainspring therein, the spring that allowed the wheels of life to rotate. The heart without love was dying away, losing its life force, even turning to stone. The darkness was overtaking those people who had trampled down their inner light and so were useless to life. These were the people of death whom evil was penetrating continuously, not only their thoughts but also their breath, wherein he ruled on a soulless throne of stone. There was nothing for him to fear, for a stone could not strike a spark that would have burnt the darkness' tenacious paws. Oh, how the darkness desired such hearts. One had to work very hard to get one's own way, and the darkness spared no effort or means to this end. If only she could see herself ensconced on the throne which had previously belonged to life. Man was endeavoring to grow in grace and wisdom. He had already been able to distinguish the light from the darkness. In him, these two principles were tightly interwoven, forming a single indivisible essence. Gloomy thoughts swept past, dictating strict orders and generating a combative atmosphere. Evil was amassing legions of venomous thoughts, capable of poisoning the whole joy of life with their sinister stench. Joy was the lampion oil which made the flame of love glow so brightly. The dark host of gloomy thoughts was successfully depriving the little fires of the nourishment it needed. The flame was gradually diminishing in size, and a light puff of air was all it would take to extinguish it forever. The world was being deprived of joy, without which both life and love would be unthinkable. The sun, too, was endeavoring to give all that he could. He tirelessly warmed the ever-cooling hearts in his rays of love. The sun wished to apply the full force of his energizing currents to restore human souls to life. He did not blame people for having lost the gift, their ability to love. For the star himself, the most important thing was love. Therefore he kept on blazing with greater and greater fervor, so that the fire-breathing warmth of his heart would be enough for all. He was ready to enter into every breast and ascend from the depths of the earth in the form of billions of tiny lights, which would scatter like stars and delight eternity with their munificent currents of love. But to that end, it was necessary to find such people capable of accepting the mighty warmth of heaven, unafraid of being burnt alive in the fire-breathing flame of love. To become the sun, this was something only man could wish for, so day by day the sun circled the earth in search of him. Exactly, Jessica. So this is literally like what Jesus went and had access to this, and then he taught the lessons from this. Well, and I mean even before Jesus, like, you know, for book one for Genesis. I mean, blanking on Moses. Most likely had access to the book of Dizan. You know, and anyway, so. All right, almost done with stanza 2, and okay. So warmth of heaven, unafraid of being burnt alive in the fire-breathing flame of love. To become the sun, this was something only man could wish for. So day by day, the sun circled the earth in search of him. The gods were turning the wheel and winding up the mainspring, which was merging with the powerful spirals of the new currents being sent to the sun's aid. They were proclaiming the beginning of a new era, which would be experienced under the sign of fiery love. Let's see. Okay, I think I'm going to break from reading this, and I'm going to read you my reflection, and then if you guys like this, I may come back and read some more of it another time. Okay, so this is what I wrote. So let me get a drink first. The Book of Secret Wisdom, a translation of the Book of Dizan, the world's most ancient sacred text, describes the sun as the bearer of love. It was his job to imbue that small cluster with the warmth of the fiery heart, filling it with his currents of abundant love. This description of the sun as the bearer of love explains why we feel so much better after a good dose of sunshine. When there is less sun exposure, either in winter months or when we stay inside, we often become depressed. This isn't because we are deprived of light, for we have lamps and built-in lighting to provide all the light we need to see, but rather the deprivation of the love the sun is shining down onto us. The book also describes the sun's frustration that his love couldn't reach all of the surface vegetation once robust vegetation or trees blocked the sun's love and light from reaching smaller vegetation like flowers. If trees blocking flowers from receiving his love and light frustrated the sun, think of how he must feel about humans constructing buildings to block themselves from his love. Thinking about the sun as providing love in addition to light, and his frustration about not being able to reach every organism on Earth at all times, made me think of solar flares and their impact on us. If we think of solar flares as enormous bursts of love being shot at Earth, we may wonder why they seem to have a negative impact on us. People report experiencing increased insomnia, headaches, nausea, emotional disturbances, and more when solar flares occur. Perhaps the influx of so much love is pushing us to grow in love and ascend to higher dimensions. In order to ascend, we must release the lower vibrational thought patterns, emotions, and behaviors. Humans are creatures of habit, and we often resist change, even when that change is in our best interest. So I would say that the symptoms we experience when the sun blasts extra love in our direction are the result of our mind-body organisms rejecting the changes that love is trying to help us execute. So that was my reflection, which I searched the entire notebook to find it and found it, but I did not reread it before coming live and sharing with you. So I hope you enjoyed this. I know Jessica has. Yeah, this book is so amazing, and I'm so glad that Christine asked that question, and it reminded me, like, oh, I need to grab that book off my bookshelf and go back and like read some more of that, because it's so good. And if we go to the glossary, I'm just trying to like, it just has so much background information. Just a second. It's got stuff about Edgar Casey. Like there's so much. It's so well researched, and there's so much in here. I was just going to look up what it says for, okay, here's one that you might find interesting. So it says Ladder of Light. The hierarchy known as Jacob's Ladder in the Bible, it is a collective unity of the countless multitudes of gods and creators existing in the universe. They have reached divine status, having passed through human evolution on one of the various planets in different solar systems, and now they are themselves the creators of not only planets, but entire stellar worlds and galaxies. They all are subordinate to the one who stands at the head of the hierarchy. There is a hierarchy on each rung of this hierarchical ladder, thus the gods of the solar system are subject to the solar hierarch, who in turn is subordinate to the hierarch of the Milky Way galaxy, and so on to infinity. The whole cosmos is governed hierarchically, and the higher governs the lower. This is the basis of evolution. No one is appointed in the hierarchy of heaven, but each one's position on the ladder is the result of individual achievement. In the case of human evolution, the basic principle... I lost my place because I'm like reading your comments while I'm reading aloud. I will definitely come and read some more. So, in the case of human evolution, the basic principle of ascent is free will, which determines one's path of life. This liberty consists in freedom of choice at any given moment, making decisions leading upwards or downwards. In this way, following a hierarch is the main condition of advancement, but it is always voluntary because the sons of light, in contrast to the servants of the darkness, never violate the law of free will. At the lowest rung of the ladder of light is the mineral kingdom, and above them all the other kingdoms of nature, including humanity, according to the level of consciousness. For example, at the top of the hierarchy of the mineral kingdom are diamonds. The plant kingdom is crowned by roses. Elephants, horses, and dogs are at the top of the animal kingdom, while the kingdom of humanity is headed by the great masters of wisdom. There is nothing in the universe which does not stand on the ladder and does not have its hierarch. The higher the step, the mightier the hierarch. It talks about laws of the universe, the law of cause and effect, the law of commensurability, the law of communicating vessels. So, I mean, there's so much in this book, and I'm super excited to like dig into it and continue reading and bringing it to read with you. So we have love. Yeah. Well, and you know, when Christians talk about how like there is no other God, I'm like, well, then why in the Bible does God say thou shalt not have any gods before me? That right there tells us that there were other gods. And the other thing is, if you look, I have a book, I'll have to look and get the title of it. But Jesus taught about the goddess Sophia. That was one of his big teachings that, of course, was left out of the Bible because the men who, like wrote and created the Bible didn't want anything about a goddess. We can't have that. But Jesus truly did teach about the goddess and honor her. And here we have magic, the universal knowledge about the forces of nature. It is customary to speak of white and black magic. White magic is divine magic, devoid of selfishness, lust for power, ambition, or greed, and entirely directed towards the good of the world in general and one's neighbor in particular, whereas the slightest attempt to use one's extraordinary powers for the gratification and benefit of self turns these powers into sorcery or black magic. However, in earthly conditions, not only black magic is inadmissible, but also white, for in dense spheres it acquires a tinge of grayness. Any attempt at magical practices on the physical plane evoke low-frequency vibrations which provoke a reaction with elemental forces. Since man is not able to control the elements, even white magic can result in unpredictable consequences. The real white magic exists only on the subtle planes, where high-frequency vibrations accurately allow for the achievement of the expected result. The only thing that has power of a magical influence and can safely be used in earthly conditions is a prayer of the heart, continuously effectual for the good of humanity and the world. So that's interesting. Somebody had made a post about synchronicities, and I said that I believe that means that proves that magic is real. And she said, that she thinks that magic is really alignment with the laws of nature that we don't fully understand, universal laws that we don't understand. So, and I think like as humanity, because obviously the Egyptians had access to a lot of this information that, in order to build the pyramids and all of, what they had in in ancient Egypt. And like I talked about Lemuria and Atlantis. And when it talks about how like you can't have, the mind is nothing without the heart. It made me think of the quote from the Bible about how it's harder for, it's harder for I guess that's a rich man. When I was in high school, or when I was in middle school, my two best friends were sisters, and their family was Pentecostal. And in order to spend time with them, I went to church with them. And I totally did not believe what their minister was preaching, but like I would go and I would wear dresses out of respect for their beliefs and stuff. And one time he was talking about how smart people wouldn't go to heaven because they couldn't submit to God's will, but it wasn't God's will that he was talking about. It was the will of the men who are in charge of the church, you know? And oh my gosh, I was so mad and I wanted to walk out, but I was like, no, Dory, you're going to be respectful. You're just going to stay. But yeah, the prayer of the heart and that connection. And it just like, there's so much in this book and it's so juicy and yummy. And I will totally come back and read more, and write more reflections to share as well. So thank you so much, Jessica, and I hope everybody else enjoys it. I hope you have a wonderful day, as I am probably going to download this and upload it to my YouTube channel as well. And so I'll end the way I always end my YouTube videos, which is that I hope that you do something today that sets your soul on fire and brings you joy, and that you follow your bliss. Take care, and I will see you next time. Mwah.